As a web developer, the majority of the information that you use and collect are in the form of strings. So it's important to understand how you can use and manipulate those strings to suit your specific needs. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at how you can manipulate strings and some of the different methods that we have available to us. So just a quick overview of what strings are. So a string is a string of characters that are surrounded by either double quotation marks or single quotation marks, and they can have anything from letters to numbers to special characters inside, and they're written just like this. So we can have letters, we can have numbers, we can have spaces, and we can also have special characters. All of these things are valid inside of strings, and they're usually meant to put some type of text output to a screen somewhere. So now that we know what a string is, let's take a look at string indices. So string indices are the individual characters inside of a string, and we can access these indices just by providing an index. And these indices, they start at 0. They don't start counting at 1, they start at 0. So the first character inside of a string is at index 0. So if we log out a string at index 0, it's going to log out that first H, and every character after that is going to have its own index as well. So if we grab index 1, that's going to be that lowercase e. If we grab index 2, that's going to be that first L, and so on and so forth. And strings are just one of multiple different things inside of JavaScript that use these indices, and they all work exactly the same. So if we get rid of this here, let's create another string. And let's just say Marco Polo. And if we save that, we get that into the console. But what if we wanted to grab this P here as our indice? Well, let's count the indices. Starting at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The space counts as 5. So our indice is going to be 6. So if we add square brackets at the end here, and we pass in the index of 6, we are going to get that uppercase P logged out to the console. Now, string concatenation is another concept in JavaScript that allows us to combine multiple strings into one single string. And there's multiple different ways that we can actually do this. So let's look at the very first way of doing it using an operator. So to combine multiple strings using the string concatenation operator, we're going to create a string, then we're going to create another string, and in between those two strings we are going to put a plus sign, and this is the operator to combine strings together, to concatenate strings together. So let's say hello, and let's go over here and say world. So now we have two different strings that are going to be combined together into one single string. And if you see, we actually don't have a space in here. So if we wanted to add a little bit of space, we could do it many different ways. We could add the space here at the end of hello, and that'll give us our concatenated hello world with a space in between the two words. Or we could put it right here at the beginning, and if we save that, it gives us the exact same result. Or we could also do it one more way. We could actually add a third string that is just a space and then concatenate them all together. And if we save that, we get the exact same result. And this is the basic idea of concatenation. But there's a slightly easier way. There's actually a couple slightly easier ways to do it. So another easy way to concatenate strings together is to use the concat method. So let's go ahead and remove everything except for the hello string. And with the hello string at the end, we're going to add a period. And this is how you add a method to any string. So after the string, you're going to add a period, and then you're going to specify the name of the method. And in our case right here, we are going to use the concat method. So we can say concat, and then we're going to put parentheses like this. And then inside of the parentheses, we are going to give it all of the strings that we want to concat in the order that we want them to concat. So let's say we want to add a space, and then we want to add world at the end. So we're going to give it a string with a space in it, and then we're going to comma separate it, and we're going to give it the last string with world. And if we save that, we get our hello world concatenated together with a space in between. And this is how you can use the concat method to concatenate different strings together. Now, in many cases, you're not actually going to be working with the strings themselves. You're actually going to be working with the variables that contain the string's values. And there's a very easy way in JavaScript that we can actually execute JavaScript inside of a string. And this is called a string template literal. And to define a string template literal, we're just going to use backticks. And the backticks work exactly like a regular string, but it also allows you to execute JavaScript inside. And the backtick, if you don't know where the key is, it should be right underneath of your escape key. Now, so if we create a string saying hello, just like this, this works exactly like a string. But let's say we want to add that string1 variable right here. So all we'd have to do is put a $sign and then double curly braces. And inside of these double curly braces, we can execute JavaScript. So we can call that string1 variable inside of these double curly braces. And if we save this, you are going to see the hello, which is the string part here, and then you're going to see believe, which is this str1 value right here. And this is how you can work with both strings and variables all in the same. So if we wanted to concatenate all three of these string variables together, let's go ahead and do that. So all we'd have to do is say $, double curly braces, and then we can call the string1 variable. And then outside of that, we can actually put our space so that they're all space separated, and then we can put our $, double curly braces, and then we can call our string2 variable. And we can do the same for string3. We can just put a space and then double curly braces with a $sign in the front, and we can say string3. And if we save that, you can see that we've got believe in yourself. And if we want to put a couple exclamation points at the end there, we can do that as well in the string part, just like this. Now, in many cases, you want to change different aspects of the string. Maybe you want to change the case, or maybe you want to make sure that there's no extra spaces anywhere. So let's start with changing the case. So I've got this string1 variable, and I can actually call a method on this called toUpperCase. So we could say toUpperCase, and we could call this method just like this by adding the period and then toUpperCase, the name of the method, followed by parentheses right at the end. And if we save this, it's actually going to uppercase every letter inside of that string. And we can actually do toLowerCase as well, and it's going to make sure that every character inside of that string is in lowercase. Now, in most cases, you want to have all of your data uniform, and people generally don't think that way. And sometimes they'll add things like this, where they have space at the beginning or space at the end. Maybe it's a username, and you don't want any of that. You want your data to be all uniform. So to remove something like this, all we need to do is call a trim method, just like this, and it's going to remove all of the extra white space from the beginning and the end of the string. Generally, this is used for something like a username where white space and case does not matter, so you would call the trim and the toLowerCase or toUpperCase method. That way everything is uniform and people can type their username however they see fit. So if you remember back whenever we talked about indices, there's actually a method that allows us to get a value from a specific index. So this method is going to be the charAt method. And what this does is it takes in a specific index and then it will return to you the value stored at that index. So if I wanted to get the value stored at index 4, we're going to pass in index 4, and it's going to return this in. This in right here is apparently at index 4. And we can actually do the reverse of that, where we pass in the value of a string that we want to find, and it will find us the index of where that string is. And we're going to use the method index of. And using this method, we pass in the value of the string. So let's say we want to find the value is. And if we pass in the value is, it's going to search through that string to find that value. And if it does find that value, it's going to return the starting index of where it starts. So the I right here starts at index 7. Now, if we pass in something that isn't in there, so we could say was, just like this, it's actually going to return a -1, meaning it couldn't find it, it searched through the whole string, and there's no part of that inside of there whatsoever. And there's actually a second argument that we can pass in here as well. So let's go ahead and add coding to the end of this, and let's search for COD. So if we search for COD and we just leave it the way it is, it's going to give us the index of 0, the first index where that string is found. But we can tell it where to start. So we can tell it to start searching at a specific index. So if we know we don't want the values at the beginning of the string, but the value that we're looking for is at the end of the string, we can actually tell it to start searching at a safe place where we know it's already past where we don't want it to search. So we don't want it to search this right here, this portion right here, because it's just going to give us the 0 index back. But if we say it can start at index 5, it'll start searching for that at index 5. So it'll start at index 5, and then it'll return the first iteration of that string that we passed in. Now we can also do a Boolean check to see if there's a value contained inside of a string. So let's say, for example, we're doing an email check, and we want to see if the little @ symbol is included inside of that string. So let's give ourselves an email at email.com here, and then we're going to use the method includes. And inside of the includes method, we are going to pass in the value that we want to see if it includes. So let's say we want to see if this email address includes an @ symbol. And if we save that, it's going to evaluate to true, because it's going to find the @ symbol right here, and it's going to say, yes, we do have that character inside of that string. Now, again, we can also pass in a position that we can have it start searching at. So we could say, start searching at this after index 3. And this is also going to evaluate to true, because it's going to start at 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to start searching at index 3, and that @ symbol is included after the index 3. Now the next few methods will actually allow us to replace things inside of the string. So if we want to replace, let's say, the @ symbol, we can use the replace method, and then we can tell it we want to replace the @ symbol, and then comma separate it with what value we want to replace it with. So let's say we want to replace the @ symbol with an exclamation point. And if we do that, we now get the value email !email.com, and it will replace that first iteration of that value that it finds. And if you want to replace all of something, let's say we want to get rid of all of the E's and replace them with A's instead, we can use the replace all method, and we could tell it we want to replace all of the E's with an A. And if we save that, you can see that we've got all of the E's are replaced with A's now. So the next few methods will allow us to pull out a specific subset of a string. So we're going to use the Substring method, and this requires us to pass in a start index, but we can optionally pass in an end index as well. So let's say we want to just get this email.com right here at the end. Now I know this E right here is at index 6. So if we pass in index 6, it's just going to pull out everything from index 6 all the way to the end. So that's going to be this email.com. Now if we wanted it to only pull out this email portion right here, ending right before the period starts, we would pass in the end index as well. So we could pass in 11 where that period is at index 11, and we could say pull out everything between 6 and 11. So it's going to pull out index 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is going to give us email, and it's going to stop right here right before index 11 starts. And another method that is nearly identical to the substring method is the slice method. Now, as I said, these are nearly identical, and the differences between the two are pretty negligible in this case, but this works exactly as the substring method in most cases. So we can pass in the first index, which is the starting index, and we will get the exact same result. And we can pass in an optional end index, which will give us the exact same result as the Substring method did. Now there's one more aspect of strings that I want to take a look at today, and this aspect of strings is not actually a method, it's actually a value that is stored with the string. And it actually contradicts just about everything I've said today about indices. So let's take a look at the length value. So this is a value that is stored with strings. It gives you the length of a specific string. But the problem is that it always starts counting at 1. So it's always going to be 1 bigger than how many indices you actually have. So to get the legitimate length of a string in indices, the legitimate number of indices, you would subtract 1 from it, just like this. And this is a normal programming pattern because we have indices that start at 0 and then the length that starts counting at 1. But the length is actually a value that is stored with the string rather than a method on the string. And that about wraps it up for all of the string methods and string manipulation in JavaScript. Now if you want to check out a full list of everything we've checked out today and a few more that we didn't discuss, I left a list of all of the string methods in the description down below. You can go and check it out. If you did like the video, make sure you slap a like on it. Check out the full playlist, link is right next to me. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.